notification.
You get your mic on, you put your laptop right on the mic. Oh, hold on. I probably should have done this before.
Are you live?
Yeah.
So,
Huh.
Ow. I'm curious how all that worked.
I'm curious too.
Oh, something.
Okay, so we are live now on that event that you set up.
Oh, we are?
Yeah.
Oh, there we are. Oh, look at that! Hey!
So we're here. All right, give us a second here. Obviously, running late. Sorry for the delay. One of those mornings, you know, those post-surgery mornings.
So on the live page too. Okay, it all syncs up.
So it is on the live page
it does,
too?
Yep. I hit my
All right,
button.
cool, that worked.
It syncs all up.
So you just got to set one up every week.
Yeah, that's fine. I can do that. We just have to be
Brett
on
says,
time.
dang, Mark, you need to take some time off for that hand. Hey, no time off. Back to work.
So
Gimpy hand or
this
not.
happened so fast.
Yeah, this was not an example of the typical U.S. healthcare system.
No, it wasn't.
Like, this is amazing. So totally not woodworking, but I figure this is the elephant in the room, the elephant man hand in the room. So we may as well talk about it. So for the last couple of months, I had just a lot of discomfort, pain, and I thought it was from cycling.
Well, loss of
yeah, I wasn't
strength.
like really able to grip very well. There were actually a couple times I had to join some 8/4 and 12/4 stock. I actually dropped the boards, and it was getting to be a safety problem. So thankfully, Jason was here to bail me out most of the time. But it was getting to be a bit of a concern. Even washing dishes, holding a big pot in my left hand was like,
Nicole, can you wash the dishes
it's
for
your
me?
turn to wash dishes, Nicole, because I can't do it. So my doctor had said that it was probably tendonitis. So that's where the brace started, and I was just trying to wear the brace more as like to bring awareness to the fact that I was doing certain things with my wrist to help me prevent from doing those. So that wasn't really doing anything, and I felt like this didn't feel like the right diagnosis to me. Something was odd. I also noticed a little bump on the back of my wrist right here. And I have very bony wrists, so it's hard to tell the bones from anything else. But
Also the hair.
and the hair, giant monkey gorilla hands. So Nicole was like, look, thankfully we have insurance that allows us to just call a specialist, get in there. So she calls on a Friday. I get the appointment on Monday. I had surgery on Thursday.
Yeah, it's like bang, bang, boom.
Yeah, that is not typical at all. Yeah. But thankfully what wound up happening was it's a ganglion cyst, very, very common.
Yes,
when I mentioned that, some people have never heard of it, but like 75% of the people are like they either had one removed or know someone who had one removed. Most of the time they're painless and they don't cause problems. In my case, it was deep enough that it was hitting nerves and causing major problems. So it was something that in order to get this done, I needed to get on the track of actually healing from this. So yeah, this will put me out for a little while, but in the end, I should be back at 100%.
And we're here to do Friday Live because you don't need your hand to talk.
I do need it to pick my nose and scratch my butt though.
Well, you got to keep your hand elevated.
I still have a finger movement. I should be keeping my hand elevated, so you might see me do this. And I'm not doing this because I want to show everyone my cool bandage. Hey, everybody.
I got a question.
But all that intro out of the way, should we just get to the show?
I think we should get to the show.
Okay.
We have a number of things to do today.
Okay.
So you want to kick it off?
Let's kick it off. It's Friday Live. I'm Mark.
And I'm Nicole.
And we're going to talk to you about woodworking today, in spite of my gimpy hand.
And I love that we have somebody that does the show notes that basically skips all that beginning stuff and just gets you right to it.
Here's where the good stuff is. Well, that's where the audio podcast goes too.
Yeah.
I always cut out the beginning intro. So hey, should mention that, by the way, in iTunes or any feed reader, you should be able to get, what is it? Wood Whisperer Live is what we called it, but it's really just copies of Friday Live in an audio format if you want to check that out. All right, so I do want to thank some folks on Patreon real quick.
You got one.
And by some folks, I mean one. And his name is Jeffrey Smith.
Jeffrey Smith.
So thank you, Jeffrey, for helping us out over on Patreon. That's patreon.com/woodwhisperer if you want to help support the show in a sort of ongoing fashion, get some cool stuff in return, including your questions on the show.
Yeah.
And I have those pre-selected here. Nicole will grab the rest of them from you.
And I just wanted to say thank you to Chris Kalinowski, who just did a super chat and said, I expect Mark to do some number 7 joinery show.
Let's do it, baby.
and
right here.
Show and tell today. Either that or a really good Philly accent for a few.
Yeah, real quick, almost every question that came in was with a comment about the hand. So thank you for all the well wishes. I'm not going to read them all. I really appreciate the support for something as goofy and simple as this little hand surgery.
I think the reason why your doctor also kind of sped things up is because you make your living with your hands.
I told him I was already having trouble not being able to work. Cremona told me after I said, yeah, I got the surgery done. This was yesterday. I was like, yeah, it's not too bad. He goes, I think you oversold this.
Yeah.
Like,
so the doctor did say it's going to be a few weeks of
I mean, everybody's different.
Yeah.
It's at least a few weeks. I mean, I've got movement here. I can't really lift anything with it. I could type for a little while if I need to. So I don't suspect it's going to be a long, drawn-out heal time.
Yeah.
And I got to get back to work, baby.
All right.
I got bread boxes to make.
Before we get into the questions, I just wanted to send a thank you out to MPowerTools. We were going to do a demo for them today of it's a router.
It's a whole router-based system. We're not going to talk much about it because we actually have a full demo/ad that we need to do for them. But we can't do it today. I need my other hand to show you how this thing works. But I got to tell you, just a little preview. I'm pretty impressed with the system. If you have a router that's, let's say, non-festool, something that doesn't have a really good edge guide, and it pretty much adapts to any router, including festool, this is something you're probably going to want to check out.
And they are doing a sale until Sunday. They're celebrating their 25th birthday, and they're offering 25% off everything and anything in the store.
It's a shame we couldn't get this out for them in time.
I'm doing this one. And they're going to do another sale for us when we talk about it too. So if you're watching this late, we're going to do the demo next week.
Cool.
But you can go over to m-powertools.com and learn about all of their products. They also have a diamond cross sharpening system. They have marking and measuring gauges, router jig, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. We're going to be talking about the router jig, the CRB7.
Yeah, CRB7, and you're probably, if you guys are like me, you're going to also want to pick up the CRB7 MHL, the mortise hinge lock and flute jig. So it's a little add-on that goes with that. If you're getting it, that's what you wanted, to get those two.
We're gonna talk about it next week. But I thought I'd send them a look because they were really understanding, like Mark's arm, and you probably don't want to.
I'm not going to do it justice.
We're not going to do it.
Jay's not here to move the camera. All right, let's answer some questions. That's what we're here for, Nicole.
We're here for some questions.
We're not here just to drink coffee and talk about my hand.
I needed some coffee, though.
So did I. That's why the show was late. We needed coffee.
Well.
Okay, so Jerry wrote in. He says, hope you're doing well. Have a quick question about jet parallel clamps. He says basically that it's sticking. He's pulling the trigger and he's not able to really get it to slide. And he said that there's no glue on there, which is usually the problem if it's not sliding, right? So he's just looking for advice on what he can do. Well, the only thing I could really recommend, Jerry, is if that little clutch system isn't working, either something is broken, or maybe if it's new, you know how sometimes new cast parts and stuff like that, they kind of need to be worked a little bit so that you can get any little burrs off of the edges, anything that's kind of sharp, you smooth it out a little bit. That might be what's going on. So one thing you can do, and this is something you should be doing with your clamps anyway, is waxing the bar. If you wax the bar, that's something that's going to help prevent glue from sticking to it in the future, and the glue will just pop off if it's fully waxed. So I would wax around the little clutch mechanism in there, and see if you can't get that thing to slide. I mean, if it's totally stuck, and even after a little bit of waxing and coercion, you're pulling up on that trigger and you can't get it to slide, you got to call Jet and get some new clamps because that's not right. They shouldn't require that much effort. I've never had to do anything like that with mine, so it definitely is not something I'd call normal. But the question is, can you do a few things to it just to get it to work, and then they'll be normal? And that I don't know for sure, but I would try the wax, try to move them. If you can't get any motion from it, at that point, I might give them a call.
Oh my God. Kevin Windsor said he drained his own with a needle and syringe.
Well, that is, you're more of a man than I am, Kevin.
Yeah.
That's why they call them the Bible cysts, right?
Yeah.
People smack them with a heavy book to
It is surprising. I'm just reading everybody in the chat. It's surprising how many people do have them.
Super common.
Wow.
Yeah.
We've got a question here from Jeff Jeff K. Just bought a new woodpecker's router table, and I need a suggestion for a good router bit for common work all the way around. Does that make sense?
For a good router bit for common work. Okay. I'm assuming you don't want a specific profile bit. You're asking me for a brand. because there's no one bit that's going to do everything, obviously.
Right.
I'm going to throw out a couple of brands that are really good. I like MLCS, I like Whiteside, I like Amana, I even have quite a few Freud bits. As long as you aren't buying the Chinese-made, basically like a 50-pack of bits, one of those variety kits on Amazon for like $20. As long as you're staying away from that bottom end, you're probably going to get a pretty decent bit. But those brands that I just recommended, what did I say? Eagle America is good, really, too.
Eagle America and MLCS, they're owned by the same company.
Same parent company, but they're
different.
Distinctly two different sets of bits. But yeah, all those brands are really good. A lot of times these days, I've been getting a lot of, especially for my spiral cutters, I get a lot of whiteside bits. I'm enjoying those.
To piggyback on that, Brian Walker said, what router bits do you use your most used go-to bit? And
probably my straight bits, like the straight spiral for cutting mortises, my spiral flush trim bits and pattern bits. Those are the ones that are very frequently used. And of course, like simple profiles like roundovers and chamfers, having a nice range of sizes in roundovers and then one good quality 45-degree chamfer bit. Those are the ones I use most often.
I've heard you say in the past where you say if you're not sure what bits, you can get, don't go cheap, but you can get one of those and you can see which ones that you use.
MLCS is a great brand for that.
Yeah.
They're really good quality, but they're not break the bank sort of expensive. And you can get, in fact, I just put away in my drawer, I'm going to do a shop tour soon and you guys will see this. And I also posted a picture on Instagram. I had one of those multi-bit sets, and basically, maybe half of the stuff you might actually use, but it's great to have those because there are times where I'm like, oh, I know I've got something to do this, and I'm not going to go out and buy the most expensive bit, but I could buy this kind of middle of the road but still good quality set, and that bit is in there waiting for me if I ever need it, and I didn't have to break the bank to get that. So buying those sets, again, avoid the bottom of the barrel stuff. I don't really trust that stuff. As long as you get a decent quality and you get a multi-bit set, then you'll have everything you need. And then once you burn one of those bits up and it's all it's just not cutting anymore, that's when you know, okay, well that bit, I'm going to go buy, whatever the best quality is that I can afford to replace that one.
All right, you got a question?
I do. I got plenty of questions.
I got lots of questions too.
Aaron Pena, quick question: what kind of pencil do you use for marking on dark wood? I've seen you use a white pencil in some of your videos, but I haven't been able to find one like that. That doesn't break every 5 seconds. Okay, Nicole, can I text this to you if I want to give you links?
Yeah.
I got 2 examples of the ones that I use. Nicole will put up the Amazon links, which are affiliate links, by the way. She'll put those up in the chat. The 2 that I've been using, let me step back. I actually did a video in the guild. We do a monthly guild meeting, and I typically just cover one topic and kind of do a deep dive. One time I covered marking on dark woods because I was experimenting with a bunch of different options. So I went through that entire process, and months later, the 2 that I'm using routinely are, number 1, a General's charcoal white pencil, and basically it's like a regular pencil with a big white, fairly soft lead. This will still break. You cannot go to a super fine point with this. I don't know if you can really tell, but it's kind of, that's sharp enough, but it's blunt. It's not necessarily something I'm going to use for super fine joinery, right? This guy is I believe it's a 7.7 millimeter lead, and it is by Bohin, B-O-H-I-N. This is sold as like a fabric pencil, a sewing pencil or something like that. It's kind of made of the same stuff, but it's a tiny thin lead, and that's about as thin as you can get with that stuff, by the way. If you look around, you will generally not find a white 0.5 millimeter lead. 7 is the smallest you're going to get. This too will break very easily, and that's the problem with a lot of these white charcoal style pencils is it's a brittle material. But it works, and you can get the job done. So these are the 2 that I use the most. If I want fine marking, this is as good as I'm going to get with white. And if I just want general marking, I'll use the regular charcoal white. Fairly inexpensive on Amazon.
I put both of these in the Friday Live category on Amazon.com/shop/thewoodwhisperer. I also started a new category. Someone in the guild asked me to do this.
My favorite underwear?
No.
It's Duluth Trading Company, by the way.
So I...
Go ahead.
Oh, you're so silly. So I created a new category, and it is products in our videos. So
okay.
I know we put them in
like in the write-ups.
Write-up. Yeah. So I'm trying to, as
That's a good idea.
Yeah, so just to collectively, the most newest video will be at the top and so on and so forth. So
I like that most of the chat is pretty much about cysts at this point, from what I can see.
Everybody's comparing stories.
Everybody's got a cyst.
They're like commiserating.
A cyst tale to tell. The cysts have it, Nicole.
Yes.
There's our title for the show. Okay, Chris Calnassi says, question about drum sander feed techniques. I've got a Jet 1836. Whenever I get a larger piece going through that relies on the infeed and outfeed tables, I get bouncing up and down, and it gives a sort of rippled effect. And to be clear, this doesn't have to be a piece that's so long that it requires rollers. Do you keep hand pressure down at all times when feeding in? Trying to save myself a lot of random orbit sander cleanup time. Yeah, you know, Chris, this is one of those troubleshooting things. It's like a bandsaw problem, right? You gotta sort of be there to try different things and experiment and see if you can get that to stop doing what it's doing. First of all, I would probably check your outfeed and infeed pressure rollers, right? So the rollers that actually, they're usually spring loaded, they apply pressure down, they keep your board tight against the table. So something, it feels like, is not applying, potentially, not applying enough pressure for you that's allowing it to jump up and down. Now it's a little bit, normal to get that at the beginning of the cut and possibly at the end of the cut, kind of like snipe. It's like a drum sander's version of snipe, before that workpiece engages the second roller. But if you're getting it throughout and through the center of the board, something definitely isn't quite right. So what could happen, you might have a situation where your infeed and outfeed tables are not dead flat with your conveyor belt, right? So if they're kind of sloped in a little bit, imagine this situation. So the board comes in, it's sloped in. Now your pressure feed rollers are putting pressure down, the sander is hitting it, and it might start to bounce a little bit because the board is flat and it wants to stay flat. But the pressure feed rollers are pushing it down to hit the bottom table surface, and your outfeed and infeed tables are kind of pushing the ends up. That could be one of those situations that might cause that ripple effect. So, like I said, you want to check those pressure feed rollers in and out. You also want to, I would probably recommend taking that same board, and on a drum sander, even if it's long, you could still support it manually, even if you have to use a roller or you have to hold at the end. I'd recommend taking your infeed and outfeed tables, lowering them, making sure they're completely not part of the equation. They'll allow some support if you need it, but at least there's no way they are higher than your conveyor belt. So drop them down a little bit and then evaluate what happens when you send the boards through and see if you still get that effect. Also, do apply some manual pressure right before it goes in. Hold that pressure down, and then on the way out, continue to pull the board so it has a nice steady pull with no interruptions and no stops. I mean, these are just kind of the troubleshooting things that I would do to see if I could figure out if it's the pressure rollers, if it's the infeed, outfeed tables themselves, and what the story is.
I like when we have lots of questions around the same topic, so router bits, going kind of back to the router bits. Mm-hmm. Tim JB says, for your spiral bits, Whiteside has chippers versus smoothing bits versus 3 flute bits, and was wondering what were the different uses for each of the spiral bit version. Do you know the differences between those three?
Chippers versus smoothing bits, 3 flute bits. I don't even know what you're talking about, homie.
Most of your bits,
I would have to look. Most of them are just standard spiral upcut. Like if you follow the link Nicole sent, or just go to Amazon and look it up. It's just Whiteside. The particular one you have is a 1/2-inch spiral upcut bit.
You didn't send me a bit.
Oh, I sent you pencils.
You sent me pencils.
I'm getting confused. That post that I took those from has a bit in it. Never mind. We're talking about bits. So just look at it. We've talked about these bits before.
We have, and I'm pretty sure it's in there. But
I'm not actually aware of what those other ones are, so I can't give you a good answer on.
And it's upcut spiral, right?
Yeah.
That one right there.
Yeah, you're really only going to find one type there. The kind he's talking about clearly is a different thing, but I don't know much about them. I'd have to look at it. Yeah. If you have links, send it to Nicole, and maybe we could look at it quickly on the show.
All right. Back to router bits. Brian wants to know, can router bits be resharpened?
Some of them can. I find for me personally, router bits I get enough life out of them that by the time I get one that dulls, it's generally just not worth my time and effort to find someone who could sharpen them well. You have to be careful with bits, especially ones that are of a certain dimension, so if you start to sharpen them too much, you can change that dimension. And it's more important in a router bit than it might be in something else like a table saw blade, for instance. So I generally do not sharpen my router bits. I'm not a heavy user, so my bits last for years. And then by the time, a spiral upcut bit is the one that's probably going to get the most use, also the most heat and friction. So those are the ones that are going to go. After a couple of years, when one of them is just completely shot, I just toss it and I buy a new one.
Interesting. I was looking to see if Whiteside had a set of bits. I mean, is that an upcut right there? Or those?
Yeah,
upcuts?
those are 1/4 inch shank. That's just a multi-bit set.
Oh, okay.
That's not what they want.
All right.
See, that's there's a difference there. That's like an 8-piece set from Whiteside. That's over $100.
Yeah.
You know, so you can find other brands with a multiple bit set.
Like there's
you get
one
like 30 bits for that same
Incra
price.
set, 1/2 inch shank.
Yeah, don't know.
It's so confusing. Like I couldn't even.
It
I
can
understand why we get all these questions. I look at it and go, what?
Oh, there's so many products, and personal preference is a huge part of it as well.
Yeah.
Okay, so Michael Sador wrote in. He says, Cedar, sorry. He says, thank you. He gave us a hint on how to pronounce it. I currently have a Powermatic PM1300 dust collector with 1.75 horsepower motor, and it unfortunately doesn't have enough suction to pull in the chips. I'm thinking of upgrading to a 5 horsepower model. I know you have had both in the Clearvue and the Oneida, and I'd like your opinion on the pros and cons of both. Also, I have, he's got a bunch of ductwork is what he's saying. And one blast gate open at a time. Thanks again. So, Michael, we have talked about this on the show. It's been a while since I talked about Oneida versus Clearvue, and I'll just do it very quickly. My answer to this is kind of boring because they're both great. So you aren't going to be disappointed with either one. Pretty sure Clearvue actually has, I don't know if it's available yet, the metal-bodied model. Go to their site real quick, Clearvue Cyclones. Okay. So the big hit against Clearvue for years has been the fact that it's plastic. And while it does hold up, and once you install it and you put that thing on the wall, as long as you don't move it, it's going to be great. It's going to do just fine. But I find that the MDF parts, the plastic, things like that, if you do what I did and you move several times...
Oh, metal. Cyclone.
There you go.
There it is, right there.
So it can actually cause problems over time. And that's where the durability comes in. But if you are pretty straight, set up in your shop, you don't need to move anytime soon, the Clearvue is a fantastic, powerful, good bang for the buck, and that's the reason why I went with them early on. I find that the Oneida, while it performs comparably to me, now I'm not testing these things, I'm just saying, does it suck the stuff out of my tools? Yes, it does. Sorry, my brain just went on a tangent for what I just said. But the build quality is better. You've got a one-piece plastic housing at the top, and then the whole entire body is metal, and the brackets and everything you that like as part of that setup is metal. So I find that the build quality is better, but performance-wise, in my shops that I've had, both of those units are adequate, absolutely adequate, probably even more than I needed, right? So I don't think you can go wrong with either one, but what we were talking about is the fact that Clearvue now has a metal-bodied version of their Cyclone, which is definitely something you should look at, and I feel like that might, I haven't seen it or used it, but that certainly might close that gap between Oneida and Clearvue if you are considering durability as a factor.
Cool.
Nicole's,
sorry, that was me going.
She's digging it.
I heard you're done. I know you're done. Okay.
You can just tell by the tone of my voice how I end the sentence that I'm finished.
Jeff Lehman just did a super chat. Going to replace my 20-year-old router, going with the Incralift, and I can't decide with which motor to use. Is that right? He said with, but I think he says which motor.
Oh, don't even give it a second thought, Jeff. Get the Powermatic 7518, the Speedmatic big hoss of a router.
Powermatic? What?
Did I say Powermatic?
You did say Powermatic.
The word I meant was Porter cable. Powermatic doesn't make a router. Sorry about that.
It is a very interesting show with this, I think.
Is this affecting my speech?
I think you're...
Funny thing is, I'm not even on meds, right? I took something last night when I went to bed, and that was about it. I don't even have Tylenol in me at the moment.
Oh my gosh.
So this is just my natural, this is my natural beauty.
So
Nicole.
what was it again? A Powermatic?
Porter cable. Powermatic doesn't make routers. Porter cable 7518. I always get that number confused. No, that's 1718.
75.
7518. It's a Speedmatic.
Yeah, there.
I believe it's like 3 horsepower or 3 1/4 horsepower, something.
It's that one, right?
Yeah, 3 1/4. That thing is a beast, and it's great because you're going to put it under there, and you're never going to have to look at it again, maybe unless you want to change the speed on it. It is a variable speed motor. So that is my favorite, and if you get any router lift brand will generally support that router. A bunch of others too, but you will almost never find a router lift or plate that doesn't adapt to the 7518.
Everybody's like, not on meds. Sure.
I'm serious, I'm not. The doctor even told me, he said, look, he's like, most people don't need anything for this. Here's a Norco prescription if you need it. And I was like, I don't need that, I'll be fine.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm just high on the pain.
Maybe.
I don't realize it.
I think you're also, it takes a physical toll on your body.
Nicole, I'm fine.
Okay.
I'm perfectly normal. Don't listen to them. They don't know what they're talking about.
I do have another super chat here. Where to go? From Ben Ackenberg. What advantage do dovetail chisels give you over the standard chisels when working on dovetails?
Very good question, Ben. Thank you very much for asking. I've got a couple back here. You're not going to be able to see the details. This is where Nicole gets nervous because there's sharp blades behind her shoulder. So basically with the dovetail chisel, what you're going to get is a sharp angle down the side. So standard bevel edge chisels usually have a little flat at the end, right? Let me get the biggest one I have. So if you look at it straight on, you have at this angle here a little bit of a blunt edge. What a dovetail chisel does for you is it goes up at a sharp angle and the corners there are really sharp, dead sharp. So the reason that's helpful is think about you've cut your tails and now, as an example, you want to clean out the space between the base, shoulder, and the tail, right? So you go and get a regular chisel that has these really, this one actually, what's this brand? Boy, now I am losing it. The blue spruce.
Blue spruce.
You have the blue spruce here. These are actually pretty sharp for a standard bevel edge chisel. But if there's any bluntness on this side and you go to clean that out, you really want that to be a tight corner. You actually can mangle the corner of your tail by pushing in and cleaning out. So what do we have to do? We get a small chisel, the smallest one we have, and we kind of we dig it in there and try to get the corner in there to get that material out. And then you come in along the tail like this and try and push it out that way, and it's a pain. Well, a dovetail chisel is nice because it's perfectly sharp on those corners. And you can just kind of zoop and clean that right up and not worry about mangling your dovetail as you're doing the cleanup task. So that's pretty much it. It's one of those specialty tools. They're nice to have. I have a few. They come in really handy. If you're going to get into very fine pin work, man, is it nice to have something like these guys. These little tiny ones, right? 1/8 of an inch or smaller. And you get that little guy in there and you go quick, 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 and clean that stuff out. So that's the primary difference. But you can get by without them. Many people do, but you're going to have to kind of, go a little cockeyed and angle it a little bit.
Cattywonk.
A little cattywampus.
We had a super chat that I missed because we weren't live yet. It was from, how do you pronounce that? Acanera's? Arcania's Workshop LLC, and he or she said to get the show started.
There you go.
So
we're doing our best.
You're still around. Thank you for
doing
that.
Our best. Hey, you know what? I would have to say a lot of people probably wouldn't do a show today.
Yeah.
But I'm just a champ, Nicole. I persevere.
I really didn't know if
the
it was
reality is the incision's probably this big. There's a single stitch in there. It's probably just some duct tape, maybe a little CA glue on it. No big deal. Actually, the doctor did say that it was really deep.
Yeah,
deeper than he expected, and he could see why it was causing me so much pain.
Donald Starens?
I have a lot of questions, by the way.
But he just said, I hope to see you at AWFS.
I'll see you there.
See us at AWFS. Both of us are going to be there because we got his mom to come and watch the kids while we're at the Titebond booth. And we will be at the Titebond booth Thursday and Friday. Thursday we'll be there basically all day except for like lunchtime, and then Friday we're there in the morning. So.
And the big deal here, just like IWF,
free books.
Yeah, free book. So just like they did last year at IWF, where they got essential joinery copies and gave them away for free if you just come to the Titebond booth. Same thing this year with essential joinery, which is cuckoo because it's like, they bought these books at full price.
Right.
Well, whatever, they may have gotten a discount to buy so many. But they paid for all of these books so that people can come along and just get a free copy.
And if you're not familiar what we're talking about with AWFS, it is a woodworking convention held in Las Vegas. It's primarily geared towards industrial professionals, but there's a lot of hobbyists that come there too. So if you go to awfsfair.org, you'll find the dates and all the details, and they do workshops, and the show floor is bananas. I was going to say banonkers.
It's banonkers. That's actually a better word. I'm not sure why people don't use that. Corey wrote in. He says, Mark, you're going to like this, Nicole. Okay. The real question is, how do you stay so handsome?
Oh, yes.
Peloton. That's all I could say. 2 quick sanding questions. Is there an easy way to tell when a random orbit sanding disc is kaput? Second, I'm considering a drum sander, and my thought is the bigger the better to be able to do tabletops, etc. Any advice? Well, you know, I actually tend to use my sandpaper longer than I should. And I think the more you sand, and especially the more you sand with a particular brand of paper and even a grit of paper, you'll start to notice when it stops cutting effectively. Sandpaper life, you can drag that out as long as you want. It's a question of how much you value your time. So there might be someone who's really, you know, they want to save and pinch their pennies, and they'll sand and sand and sand, and they don't care. As long as it's sanding, they're going to keep using it. But there is a point where the effectiveness, it stops cutting as easily, and then you wind up having to sand 2 or 3 times longer. So there's no really hard and fast rule. It's a matter of how much you want to use dull sandpaper for. And you get to a point, especially when time is money, and pros, generally, you're going to find they're going to say, well, this is dull, throw it, and maybe put it on the side. Because the other thing is, spent discs can actually be cut up and used for other things, for some hand sanding and detail work. So keep that in mind. It's not a total waste. But if time is money, you're better off grabbing another piece of sandpaper and just getting that job done faster. So the only way to really tell is when you start to see it's not cutting as fast as you expect it to. And that's something that comes from experience. You have to know what the normal amount of time is to sand something to know when it's not happening fast enough. So that's really all there is to it. It's just a matter of gaining some experience there. You'll also be able to compare a brand new disc to one that's well worn and touch it. Feel it with your fingers. The new one, you'll find it's very grippy and it grabs your fingertips. The other one, if it starts to just kind of slide and it's nice and smooth, that one's pretty close to being spent at that point. Second part of his question was drum sanders. Yeah, I mean, the thing is, I have a 2244. It has a cantilever design, which means it's open-ended. So theoretically, you could put a tabletop in, flip it, and then sand the other side. And then you might have a little baby ridge in the middle that you could just sand out with a random orbit sander or something like that. I hate doing that. I never get great results doing that, so I don't. It's just not my favorite thing to do. If you are going to be sanding big wide tops, keep that in mind. There are people who can successfully do that. Talk to those people because they know something I don't. If you are going to do a lot of that stuff, you may want to look into something like a true wide belt sander, a time saver. Something that's going to be a general capacity.
That's 25 inched.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be a big heavy duty machine if you're getting a true wide belt
37?
sander. Yeah, exactly. What? And it's not a cantilever design. It's basically going to look like a giant planer, except for it's usually multiple drums of sandpaper inside. Those are fantastic. Those are very expensive. But if you're doing a lot of tabletops, that might be something you invest in. So get the biggest one you can, learn how to use it, get the hang of that cantilevered system and the 2-pass system, because it can be done. I'm just telling you from my experience, I haven't had a whole lot of luck with it. So I pretty much only utilize my drum sander for the 22-inch capacity that it gave me.
There you go.
Yeah.
But yeah, so yours on Amazon is what, $2,500? The 37 is like $6,000, $7,000.
Once you get out of that range, 22, 44, you get out of the cantilever design, you are bumping yourself into an industrial level.
Basically doubling it.
And the price goes up accordingly.
Yeah.
Okay, from Ryan Murray. He says, I got some exotics for my birthday. Paduuk, poisonwood, and lacewood. I'm used to walnut, cherry, mahogany, and oak. Is there anything I should know about these woods? Google is full of useless and jumbled information. Are any of them splintery, oily, hard to work with hand tools, good or bad for cutting board accents, etc.? Thanks for your knowledge. Okay, well, here's the thing, Ryan. Every wood is different, right? Each wood has its own properties. You should look things up. I think the wood database is a good place to get some general information that you can trust. Don't just Google and look at forums because people are dumb. You want to look for a reliable resource.
What's this?
I'm a person, so
I know.
That's why I'm sending him to other resources. I'm going to tell you, generally speaking, the questions you asked, basically, yes. They're all kind of splintery. They're all oily. They're all not really great to eat off of, and I wouldn't trust them for cutting boards. All of these exotics, for the most part, we're painting with a broad, brush stroke here. They are all woods to be cautious around. You got to protect yourself. even more so from the dust. I mean, if you're protecting yourself from dust anyway, good. For me, if I was going to be using a lot of exotics in the shop for a little while, I'd probably shave, right? And I do get a pretty decent fit with my respirator. I know it's not perfect, but with domestics, if I have it on nice and tight, I feel like I don't smell anything, I don't taste wood, I feel like I'm doing something. If I were doing an exotic where I think the safety stakes go up a little bit, I'm gonna shave. I'm gonna make sure I have a really good tight seal with my respirator for those. So exotics, you just gotta be careful. And just broadly speaking, I wouldn't really use them in cutting boards, wouldn't use them for food contact. Yes, they're gonna be oily, most of them. Yes, they're gonna be difficult to work. And there is a reason why all of our favorite hand tool fanatics aren't using exotics in their work. Most of them are using woods that behave well when planed and chiseled, because it's not fun to hand plane Paduuk and Wenge.
Wenge.
I mean, these things can be done.
The summer of Wenge.
Oh,
I
remember,
hand,
Nicole.
you had splinters all over your hands.
I sure remember that. But they just don't work well with hand tools, and they're also very abusive to your power tools. You know, so just know that that's what you're in for. And part of the responsibility is to look at each individual species, try to find resources like the wood database that give you an idea of the level of toxicity.
Someone linked the wood.
How dangerous it is.
Somebody actually just linked to the wood database in the chat.
Yep.
So.
But be cautious. All the questions you're asking, they're the right questions to ask. And pretty much across the board, you could say yes to all of them. They're all problematic on all those fronts.
Swedish Nuts did a super chat.
Nice.
And asked the question, I have an older...
Is that the same company that makes sweaty balls?
Maybe.
Sweaty wieners?
I have an older 80s 12-inch jointer / planer. I only use it for the jointer. It has an aluminum bed. I can't find info on it. It doesn't seem to be the greatest. Should I buy a helical head for it or just a new 8-inch jointer?
So does this jointer planer, does it have really big hair? Does it smell like Aquanet?
An 80s.
It's an 80s jointer. I mean, you just imagine.
The curl.
Maybe it's partied a little bit too hard, right? Yeah. Now it's really tired because it's got kids.
Yeah.
And it was like, why did I do that when I was in my 20s? Okay, so I would dump it. Look, if you get, the thing is, combo machines they can be tricky. If you have a cheap combo machine, typically, like you're saying, it's aluminum tables. You're gonna have parts that just aren't going to be very sturdy. My experience with inexpensive combos is they're garbage. And I hate to say it because there's brands that I really like that make them, but they're crap. If you aren't spending a decent amount of money, north of $1,000 for a combination machine, preferably even more than that, $1,500 plus, you're not going to get a machine that does very well at either of those tasks. So I would recommend trashing the one you have, or not, don't trash it. Let's be realistic here. Find another woodworker who could use it, and maybe someone who's just starting out. That's a good tool for them to possibly get started with. And then go to
they'll feel the frustration that you feel.
They'll go buy the same jointer you're going to go buy.
That's what when I did my for sewing, for quilting, I got like a very low entry just to see if I was into it, and I'm like, this is not fun.
Yeah, I would not waste your time and money on a helical head. Also keep in mind, a lot of times, from what I've heard, the helical heads take a little bit more horsepower to rotate them.
Yeah.
They're a little more power hungry, and you're putting that in a machine that's probably already underpowered. You're probably not going to like the results.
Like, no mas.
No mas.
No more.
No mas.
With the helical heads too, depending on what joiner you buy, sometimes they come already in the joiner.
Well, yeah, if you get a new joiner these days, most of the time you're going to have the options to get a helical head in the jointer. I picture this this combination machine with a really big hairdo, like Flock of Seagull style.
The wings.
Yeah. Or maybe like a little whippet bucket on his head, something like that. It's an 80s.
A banana clip.
Yeah, exactly. But totally, man, get the new one. I'm sorry, in that case, I can't condone throwing good money after bad.
Yeah. Mike McMahon. McMahon.
Oh, Mike McMahon. Nicole's buddy.
For the hang chair, how would you recommend cutting the back rest curve without a bandsaw?
A bow saw, maybe?
A jigsaw?
No. It's 7 inches.
Thick.
If I didn't have a bandsaw, I would probably do a couple of things. Let's see. So you got two curves. So for folks who don't know, the back of the chair has two curves to give it this total, curved look. There's an inside curve and an outside curve. So the outside curve, fairly easy to replicate that with hand tools. You could definitely, it's not that much material. You could plane that away, no problem. The inside curve, there are hand tools that can do that, things like compass planes, but I don't think that's really a good, a good thing for this situation. If it were me, I would power carve it.
I was thinking power carve.
Yeah, worst case scenario, if I didn't have a bandsaw to relieve all that stock, I'd power carve it. What I'd probably do though is first I'd take it to the table saw, and either with a dado blade, or even if you just have a regular blade, I would kerf the crap out of it. I would put it on a miter gauge or a sled and make a bunch of cuts, and you could raise the blade for the parts where it gets deeper and kerf it. So you could remove a lot of that material, also giving you guidelines so that if you do go back and start to actually go through with power carving, you can carve down to those lines. You can also do that kerfing, and we're talking about a lot of handwork here. You do that kerfing, if you get them small enough, you can then get a chisel and come back, and if you pop the chisel in across there, they're gonna snap right off. And it can kind of get you pretty close to where you need to be, where you could start to use some aggressive sanders to work your way down to your lines.
Cool.
Those are the only things that come to mind. There might be other solutions, but that's something. Honestly, if you have a local woodworkers guild or something, get in touch with them, see if you can find somebody local and ask them for 10 minutes on their bandsaw. Buy them a pizza.
I mean, we've even, if you're in the guild group, we've had people go, hey, anybody in this area I can borrow
the
your
guild
band?
group, I mean, it's a small group, generally speaking, but there's several thousand people in there.
I think we're up to
other guild
4,000 members in there now.
And the great thing is it's a high quality group of people, so.
Yeah. Oh, and speaking of the Facebook guild group, after 2 months of going back and forth with Facebook, I was able to finally reset the Mentorships program.
Oh, yeah.
It is now completely, I am hands off. So you basically create your own profile as a mentor or mentee, and the members go in and say, oh, I could help, Joe with that. I'll be his mentor, or I'll be their mentee. So it's
That's
actually,
great.
and I have no insight into it. It's all hands off. So it's just a matter of meeting other fellow woodworkers and talking about woodworking, and yeah, I like it.
Cool.
We got a question here from Olson Woodworks. He wants to know what air quality meter you use.
It's over there. I can't get it. It's a Dylos. It's going to be in our Amazon store.
Maybe?
We've talked about it so many times.
I don't remember putting it in it. Is it
DY.
DY.
LOS.
LOS?
Yeah.
Oh, there it is. Right
Dylos Air Quality Monitor.
Monitor. Oh, it's that guy right there. Ooh. It's a little.
No, it's
not
got a humidity gauge. Get the one without.
That one.
Yeah, that's fine.
That one right there.
There's a couple different ones.
All right.
I use the Dylos. You can see it says I purchased it already.
Oh, yeah.
It's not cheap, but if you're a little paranoid about air quality, like I am, those are great. Keep in mind, excuse me, that is not something you really want to trust for absolute exact numbers. For me, it's a question of relative numbers. Hold on, let's get some water. I didn't hydrate enough yesterday. It's fighting me back today. So the numbers that thing produces, and especially over time, it can get out of calibration. What I use that for is relative numbers. I want to see, when I know the shop is dusty, is the number high? Yes. After I run the air cleaners for a long time, does the number go down? And in what circumstance does the number get to 0 or under 10? I use those relative numbers to tell me if the air is clean or not. I don't care what the actual number is and if that number is accurate. It's just the relative accuracy that I'm looking for, and it works really, really well for that. So for instance, I leave that thing running. If I put the air cleaners on and the doors are closed, the windows closed, I come back in half hour, 45 minutes, that number is generally going to be below 10. But the funny thing is, if I take that meter outside, just in the fresh air, because there's a lot of particulate matter in regular air that we breathe every day, it may be up at like 100, depending on the air quality conditions outside. So I can get my shop to a point where it's technically cleaner than the air outside. But if I open the windows and open the garage door, then the number comes back up a little bit. So again, it's a matter of understanding where that number is going, what the relative change means.
I got a question here for me.
It's probably the doctor calling.
John Williams wants to know what sewing machine I use.
It's a Juki!
It's a Juki! So, Juki makes an amazing, now I'm going to tell you this, it's just a straight stitch.
Juki don't make dookie, I'll tell you that much.
I put the link in the Friday Live category. I'm also going to put it in the chat room so you have it. I love this machine. It is an amazing, and it gets almost 5 stars on Amazon too.
Sweet.
It does an automatic cut of the thread, so as I'm stitching, I can just hit the button and it cuts it, and then I can go.
That sounds amazing.
Oh, it's so amazing. I love this machine. Awesome. If you're not a quilter or if you don't sew, it's probably like whatever.
I'm not in the club.
But it took me a while to find this machine.
It's like a ratcheting collet on a Festool OF 1400. You know what I'm saying?
Sure.
It's that level of creature comfort. David Wiggins, our good buddy. He says, Spags, hey, it's your good buddy, David Wiggins. Yeah. You also achieved the tag of benefactor last week.
Oh yeah, benefactor.
Well, he sends me granola.
Oh, granola.
So I want to build a nice lap desk and want it to look like the leg curves smoothly down from the flat top. Is a miter joint the best and the only way to achieve this flowing look? If not, what's the best way to attach the legs for a heavy roundover? Hope you recover quick. He says he hopes that the doctor activated QoS when he went into my wrist. He did indeed. I think you're right. This is another one of those times, David, where you ask me a question that I think you already know the answer to. There's really no good way that I know of to get grain to flow in that fashion from 2 pieces that eventually end up at sort of a 90-degree or whatever angle. Mitering is the only way that brings the face grain together in a way that matches. So if you cut those pieces from the same board and then you fold them so that the miter is there, and then you do some sculpting or rounding over, whatever it is you're going to do, I don't think that there's any other way to have that grain be continuous and look that good outside of a project that completely goes in a different direction, where you have some kind of a base framework and you take a solid piece and veneer it, or bend it to that shape and attach it that way. So yes, absolutely, I can't see anything other than a miter really working well for that.
Jeffrey Brown did a super chat and said, "Here's a few dollars to commit."
Good job.
I was going to say commiserate, but that's the wrong word.
Commemorate.
The first time I've been able to watch live. Woot.
Nice. That's awesome. Thanks.
Thanks for
Thanks, Jeffrey, for commiserating.
In addition to Jeffrey being the first time watching us live, we also have Charles Hinton said, "First time I've caught the show live. Y'all the only woodworking people my wife will watch."
Yes!
She and Nicole would get along great. Lots of common interests. Take care.
That's awesome to hear.
She quilts too?
No, she just tolerates her husband's antics.
Oh, I look at my Instagram account and I'm like, I go video games, quilting, kids. Like I have the weirdest collection of like...
My Instagram is home theater, video games, barbecue, and woodworking. Yeah. It's a nice collection. Yeah. Can I mention something about the military project we were talking about? Yeah. Is this okay to mention it here? Yeah. So I should have probably mentioned this at the beginning because a lot of people will miss this, but we'll talk about it again.
It was inspired by the viewer.
Well, one of the projects I want to build is a military flag display table. So think of a big shaker table with a lid that opens up. Inside there, it can be built differently. If you have more than one flag, you could put more than one in there. But the base design will accommodate a single flag, and then we'll have space for other memorabilia, medals, anything relevant to someone who we're trying to memorialize.
Nicholas Moore. He's the one that...
Nicholas Moore? Okay, well, thank you for this idea,
He sent us the book and then also added in, he thought it would be really cool if we worked on something.
So here's the deal. I want to build this thing. But we are actually not a military family. I don't really know of anyone in our family who's either active or retired military. I mean, we have some of your, I think your uncle or something, you've got somebody?
All of my uncles served in a branch of the military.
Right. But what I'm really looking for is specifically someone in the Denver area who is either the family of a military person, a vet, someone who, who would really love and appreciate a beautiful table to be able to put their flag and some of the things
that we don't have to ship.
That's why I said it's got to be Denver.
It has to be local.
And I would love it to be someone who could really appreciate it and make use of it. Geez, this throat, guys. Excuse me.
Yeah, it's a shadow box table basically because it's going to
So
flip
yes,
up.
it's going to be a shadow box table. So the reason I want this is because I have nothing to put in it that will do it justice. When I'm done with it, I'm going to be like, hey, look at this table and imagine what it would look like with some meaningful stuff in it. And I don't have those things to put in it. So in order to make this work, I need somebody local. So if you or someone you know would be a good candidate for something like this and who would really appreciate a table like this,
Email me.
Email Nicole at the Wood Whisperer.
Nicole at thewoodwhisperer.com.
And we will consider all of our options here as we approach getting into the build. Okay.
We also
and no charge. This is not
no.
for sale. This would be free to whoever the person is that would like to help us out with this.
So just this week, I rolled out a new little feature on our guild site to try to help people. I know, if you happen to make it here, you can ask us questions, but not everybody can make it to the live. So I put up a chat on our thewoodwhispererguild.com. So if you do have questions, you can actually talk to me pretty quickly on my phone. And in fact, while
I do that too.
He did. I was like,
I send Nicole messages.
So you got a little well wish from Daryl from Roswell, New Mexico.
Oh.
He's a guild member, but he wasn't signed in, so he
Thanks,
saw
Daryl.
the little button.
Yeah.
Because if you're already a member and you're signed in, you won't see it. So there you go.
Can I just lean on your
Sure,
shoulder?
that's fine.
It's getting a little tired.
Yeah. That's all right.
Okay. So Mike Davies.
Seriously, you can do that. It doesn't
That's
hurt.
all right. I'm joking. Mike Davies says, "Hey guys, hope you heal up. Okay. Thank you, Mike. Anyway, I have a question about resawing oversized to allow for wood to move. Is there a general rule about how thick pieces you can get out of 4/4 or 8/4 wood when resawing? I know you can't expect 2 1/2-inch pieces from 4/4, but can you expect 3 5/8 pieces from 8/4? Is there some kind of chart somewhere, or is this just a cut and hope kind of solution every time?" I think you're not really going to find a good, hard and fast resource on this. And part of the reason is because 8/4 and 4/4 don't necessarily mean the same thing every place you buy it. Some mills are cutting it a little bit bigger, some are cutting them a little bit thinner. And depending on if it's like S3S versus completely true rough stock, it's going to be all over the map. Obviously, the rougher the better. You can get more out of a thicker piece of material. So I think what it comes down to is knowing what size blade you have on your saw and how thick that blade is. That's going to give you your kerf. And then you need to have waste, right? A certain amount of material for that blade to possibly move, for some irregularities and room to be able to plane those pieces afterwards to flatten them out. So what I usually do, I take a sample piece of the material, I put it up on the workbench, and I grab a pencil and get a ruler, and I start marking it out. So if I want to get 1/4-inch pieces out of whatever this thickness is, I will start to mark 1/4. Then if I know my blade's thickness, I round it up. So let's say it's like a 1/16 of an inch thick, or maybe a little under a 1/16 of an inch, I call it a 1/16. So I go 1/4 inch, a 1/16, a 1/4 inch, a 1/16. And then I see where I end up. And if I have a decent amount of material left over, like an 1/8 or a 1/4 left over at the end or something approaching a 1/4, I know that that material can be eaten up by the slack I'm going to give this, right? Because you don't want to cut it to your exact final thickness plus the exact thickness of your blade. It's never going to work. It'll be too thin. So you give it that little bit of overage, and I like to get at least, if I trust the wood and I trust my blade, I'm going to give it at least a 1/16 of an inch to be sure that I have material to flatten those boards when it's all said and done. So you have to kind of do the math and draw it out yourself on the boards that you have. This also changes, even if the boards are thick, what if they're not flat? You're going to have to joint that surface. And if the wood, this gets so complicated, but if the wood starts to misbehave and you make that first cut, well, now your plan goes down like into the toilet because you make that first cut and now you actually have a very unflat surface. So what do you have to do? You take that cut surface, go back to the jointer, joint it once or twice, now you go back to the bandsaw and make your next slice. You can consume so much material if the wood isn't behaving. So this absolutely is, if wood all behaved the same way, you could probably come up with numbers, and if it was all available in the same thicknesses, you could have these numbers preset. But it is not a spectator sport. You got to be there to watch what's happening and make these estimations as you're working with the material in the shop.
We have a super chat from Luke Dorney, and he did the cool Amazon premium free super chat. So thank you, Luke.
Oh, thank you, Luke.
Got a question here from Moose. He said, I do not have a jointer. Are any suggestions for alternatives for a jointer?
this.
Oh,
Seriously, if you don't have a jointer, do what they did for years when jointers weren't invented yet. Get good at using a hand plane. That is the most basic way to get into that world. If you need to do power tool alternatives, you can use a sled at the table saw. I don't know if you have a table saw, but you can build a sled that holds your workpiece, and the sled references off your fence. And as long as the workpiece is immobilized to that sled, you could push that through and get a fairly jointed edge. You can also use, and you'll have to Google this for specifics, but you can use your router to do jointing at a router table by offsetting your fences. You could also use a router and a flush trim bit if you have a long straight edge. That's another alternative way to do it. So there's a shotgun offering for you there of multiple ways.
Luke says, I hope your robot arm turns out well.
Beep, boop, beep, burp, beep, beep. Must have coffee. Stumptown Woodworks wrote in. I'm going to summarize his question. He's looking at a couple different bandsaws and is trying to decide if it's worth it to jump up the hundreds of dollars increase to like a 14-inch bandsaw with 1.5 horsepower. He's trying to figure out if that 1.5 horse is truly enough to do resaws on like the 10-inch capacity that it supposedly gives you. So very quickly, and he is very well aware that I don't like tool buying questions. But then he gives me a tool buying question. I love that. So I'm going to say, yeah, you can do it. There are people who tune the crap out of their 14-inch bandsaws and put the right blade in there, have it perfectly tuned, and I'm talking like Snodgrass level tuning. In fact, Michael Fortune put on a talk, I think at a Woodworking in America show that I went to, where he was using a 14-inch bandsaw to do some serious resaws. And it works. It can work. It's just slow. You have to let the wood clear out. You have to let the blade do its job, and you cannot force it through. You just have to take your time. It can be done. If you're doing a lot of that, you got to upgrade. I mean, this is one of those things where sometimes the things we do, the best tool, it does take some extra money because you got to get the horsepower, and if you're going to actually be doing a lot of this stuff, you're not going to want to sit there all day just going, all right, this will be done in about 5 minutes. Like, you want this thing to get done, and the way to do that is more power. So I would definitely go for the more powerful tool, the most powerful one your budget can handle, and I do think it's worth it to bump up from he's asking about a 10-inch like benchtop model to a 14-inch at 1.5 horse. I do think that's going to be a substantial upgrade. I don't know for sure that 1.5 horsepower saw is going to be your forever bandsaw, depending on what you do, but it certainly will get you further than that 10-inch.
Got a super chat here
for my questions,
from Alfredo. It says, hello guys, just an advice from a newer guild member. If you're about to pre-order your first project, check the release year. I didn't. But at least I got access to the Guild Facebook group.
So yay.
Yay.
Well,
it does say 2020.
We try to be as obvious as we can, and I completely understand when you look at the menu of options, you might miss that. But the dates are pretty clearly labeled on there. I think the surprises, and I don't know, maybe we should put some kind of notification.
I think it's the image, because normally we have just sketch art for the pre-orders. And for Daryl's, because he's already built it, we actually have images of the project.
Yeah, maybe. I think it's more the fact that most people don't feel like if they're buying something in June and that project comes out in October,
right?
Most people are assuming it's the upcoming October. But the way the guild works, especially now with these guest instructors, we have to plan really far out. So the alternative is to not publish those so early. But I like to give people visibility because it's such a good discount. We leave them in pre-order for a very long time. Which gives you a chance to get them at the lowest price. So if it's causing too much confusion... Maybe
we could just put something on the image itself, like a banner.
You know what might actually be good is some kind of a subheader that says 2020 projects, 2019 projects, and then it subdivides them. Okay. So I'll talk to John and see if we could try to make that clearer for you guys, because I know that's disappointing if you think you're going to get this great project in a couple of months, and then you go, well, crap, it's a year from now. I can see how surprising that would be, but that's kind of how the guild has always worked. We have always strived to have projects in 1 year ahead of time.
Worth Effort said, geez, Nicole's thumb typing speed is at superhuman or teen levels.
What are you typing over here? If you look very closely, Sean, and if you film her at slow motion, it's like watching, like, you ever see like in a Superman movie or something like that, where the world is going slow, but Superman's like this. Or like the Flash, right? That's what it's like with her thumbs. There's little lightning bolts behind them.
So in high school, when I learned how to type, I learned on typewriters, and I won a number of awards for speed typing.
Really?
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Did you know that?
You know what? And can anyone make me feel better about this? I used to actually be able to type better on my mobile device. But now I can type really fast, right? I can do what you're doing with the double thumbs, and I go, but it's nonsense. When I'm done, I am not hitting the letters I think I'm hitting because my big monkey thumbs are hitting in the wrong spot. So please tell me that this is not something that like I'm just getting older and getting worse at this, but it seems like it's getting worse. I used to feel like I could actually hit those little tiny numbers. So I can type fast, but it's gobbledygook when I'm done with it. And even the autocorrect is like, I don't know what you're talking about.
I really am annoyed with iPhone when I want to write the F word and it always writes duck.
Yep.
So it's like,
maybe
don't make that.
Maybe you should stop writing the F word, Nicole. Why are you so angry?
I'm not angry.
You clearly are. Saying bad swear words. I'm done with questions.
Okay, I have some more. We have a question here from John Deere. Looking for my first bandsaw for wood turning, what would you recommend for wood like?
That is not a question I can answer.
Yeah, it's 1,500. I mean, it's for wood turning, so he's just going to cut bowl blanks.
But he needs capacity.
Yeah.
So if you're a turner, you're probably going to abuse your blades, but you need capacity to be able to get your bowl blanks underneath that. So for that price range, for any price range, I can't help you. I don't know the prices of bandsaws right now. So maybe the chat room can give you some recommendations. I'm sure there's some people who recently purchased a bandsaw who can give you some advice there. But obviously capacity for a turner, capacity is going to be probably more important than, let's say ultimate accuracy, right? And perfection. You're really just kind of rounding bowl blanks and cutting things down and not, dog-earing corners and stuff like that. Todd says you're getting old. It's happening to me too now. Todd, that's not the answer I wanted, man.
Oh, it's Todd. Hey, Todd.
Oh, by the way, I'm going to give Todd a little bit of love. Todd has changed my life.
Yes.
Todd offered his services to help with editing video, which is something that I have Superman syndrome when it comes to our business, and I feel like
he has a death grip on everything that he does.
Well, not anymore. Oh, yeah. I have half of a death grip. I don't want to let go of these things because I feel like it would lose whatever magic that I put into the videos. That's really giving myself way too much credit. But Todd, when I asked for some help, like, geez, over a year now, huh? I asked for some help, and Todd was in the guild. He said, hey, I do video editing. I'll help you out. And ever since then, Todd has been editing pretty much every one of our videos that's come out in the guild and otherwise.
Yeah.
So I have to, do work to them afterwards, but he takes that first pass, lays it down, does color correction and sound. He does everything for me, and it's fantastic, and hopefully he's blushing right now because he does a great job, and it's been a game changer working with him. So Todd, thank you, sir.
I should be thanking you too. Well,
especially now with Jay in the shop, our production rate is going up. I need that help because I need to be in here, not sitting in my office editing video. And Todd is like
I feel like we should send
superhuman
Todd,
editor.
Like a big gift basket to celebrate his 1 year anniversary with us.
Maybe.
Like, of salty nuts.
We send him paid invoices.
That's true.
That's what Todd gets. That's the best we can do. Hey Todd, you want some salted nuts or some sweaty balls? We'll send you some sweaty balls. A basket of sweaty balls.
See, Quailus Woodworks. I have a DeWalt DW735X. Is it worth upgrading to the helical cutter head?
I think a helical head is worth an upgrade. On that particular model, you'll have to ask people who have it because, again, the cutter head changes power requirements and how well the planer performs when you're sending the wood through. So I do, generally speaking, always recommend go for the helical if you can get it, but definitely ask some folks who have done that upgrade and see if it still has the power that they need it to have. Does it bog down? Are there any problems with it? Because I don't know for sure. There might be.
Kevin Wixon in the chat room reminded me we had a question last week about washable photography background. And he
fabric background.
actually posted in the guild group. He's a commercial photographer.
Oh, nice.
So they use a 4x8 sheet of Formica laminate that you get from Big's box store.
Oh, so it's flexible. and provides a smooth background, a smooth transition.
Look at how nice that looks,
Oh,
too.
dude, that's a brilliant idea.
Besides washable and giving durability, guaranteed wrinkle-free surface, you can set it up in an area with an 8-foot ceiling, secured to the wall, letting it hang flat when it's not in use.
That is amazing. If I could find a place to store that, that would make sense. Oh, that's great.
Yeah, so Kevin, thank you. Because he's like asking me, I'm like, I don't remember seeing it. But
And
now
that's
that
one
I
of the
shows
biggest
it to me-
things. When I use the paper, it's paper,
Yeah.
so it wants to crease. And trying to get that smooth transition, that's a brilliant solution. I love that. And you can hang it anywhere, right? If you can get the...
Yeah, he has like little clamps on the back. He has a piece of wood right there, and he clamps it.
I wonder what would happen if you get like 2 of them. If you need a really wide surface. Oh, you just changed things for me. I'm going to have to look into that. Because it frustrates the crap out of me that I can't photograph my stuff. And if I could figure out a way to make that whole area over there, Nicole, like get that as a backdrop and utilize that space, we could put a table there.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Brilliant!
Luke just said, when we join the guild, are there mysterious life benefits that can be confirmed?
Yes. Absolutely. It
What is a
will.
mysterious life?
It'll make you a happier person.
I think so.
And if you have family and friends, they will notice a difference. They'll be like, did you dye your hair? You know, like you'll look different. You'll have a glow about you. It's just a general increase in happiness, probably in the ballpark of like 10 to 15%.
What I truly do like about the guild is, depending on where you are in your journey for woodworking, whether it's very new or very experienced, there's a place for you in the guild. And you can become a mentor, you can be more social, or you can just hang back and just watch the videos. I mean, we have members that, well, that's all they do. They just watch videos. They don't actually build anything, they just watch. So it's really up to you on where you are in that level of the hobby. That's what I liked about the quilting part of learning that. So anyway.
Yeah, I mean, not to toot our own horn, but the guild is exactly what we hoped it would become. It's a collection of people, not all of the same background, not all of the same woodworking skill level, people from all over and all over the map, willing to help each other. And I think the most important factor is very like-minded people in terms of being open-minded to new ideas. Supportive, not set in their ways. I mean, there's always people who, you know, maybe they have a bad day or something and they answer something in a question in a way that's a little bit, you know, maybe snarky. But most of the time, it's a very relaxed environment where everyone is willing to help. There's no ridicule for asking a question or doing something stupid and saying, hey, did I do this right? And everyone's like, no, you probably should do it this other way. It's a stark contrast to what can happen in any other public group where someone can be ridiculed just for asking a question, and that drives me nuts.
That's why I always hated about forums. There was, back in the 2000s, forums were huge. I mean, not that they haven't gone away, but I've always been so hesitant to even type anything on a forum. Like, I'm so nervous that somebody's going to rip me apart.
Yep.
It's not how it works, and
Doesn't work
I don't
that way
let
in the
it
guild.
happen.
Scott Harmon also mentions, he says, since I joined the guild, my hair grew back. He says, oh, no, wait, it grew on my back. It grew on my back.
Nicole, can you provide a link to razors? Scott? Huh? I'm not sure what you mean, John. What else? I did have another question here from...
You got somebody you need to kick.
Oh, great. Which one?
Came in after, at least on my screen, it came in after John's question.
Oh, I don't see that.
Weird.
He's probably already blocked.
Okay.
So you see the unfiltered stuff.
Oh, no kidding. Sweet.
Weird. That's interesting.
All right, what else we got? More questions?
I do have another question from Richard Albert. I just got a PM66 table saw at an auction, and I thought I put a better blade on it than the Freud that I have now on my contract saw. What should I get? A Forest, CMT, something else? I know this one.
Go ahead.
Forest Woodworker 2.
Yeah, Forest Woodworker 2 is like the standby, old standby, classic woodworker's good blade, right? You're going to spend $100 on it. I mean, sometimes you can get them cheaper, but it's probably around $100. Woodworker 2 40 tooth if you want a combination blade that kind of does everything. You could certainly get a ripping blade if you want to, but it looks like you're just going to do one blade in a 40 tooth. It's going to do great rips, great cross cuts. Lights is another brand that I've been using a lot. Leitz. They make a really good blade, and Tenru makes a good blade. Ridge Carbide, a lot of fans of Ridge Carbide blades. And let's see, of course.
What was it, Lights?
I think Leitz. I've got one over there, I can't see it though. The Freud Freud Fusion, some of the higher quality Freud blades are really, really good. And CMT makes good blade too. I mean, the thing is, as long as you're not spending 20 or 30 bucks on a table saw blade, you're probably gonna get a decent blade. If you spend north of 80, you're gonna get a really good quality blade. So kind of like other things, you know, I'm gonna give you a category essentially that you could buy within, and you're gonna find people who find, oh, the Forest is the best, or this Tenru is the best. There's lots of best. It just depends on who you ask. But you cannot go wrong with Forest. It's also a company that's just based in New Jersey. I don't know anything about them other than that, but they seem like a good company.
Bill was talking about the Juki sewing machine, and I'm like,
The Dookie?
It's a great machine.
Yeah, it is.
Every time I sew with it, I'm like,
don't forget, guys, smash that like button, subscribe, and slam that bell. We're such good YouTubers.
I know. Thomas wants to know, what brand is your little razor saw, and where did you get a hold of it? What little razor saw? Oh, you have a little razor?
This guy. It is a Graz, I believe? No. Gyros. I was close. It was a G. Gyros. It's either gyros or it's Greek. It would be euro.
Yeah, gyros.
This little guy. So
it's right there.
So folks who don't know what a razor saw is, it is a very teeny tiny blade with little baby teeth.
Is that what this is?
Uh-huh.
Oh, cool.
It's super, super fine, almost to the point like you could rub it against your fingers. It's not going to cut you. I mean, if you push hard, it might. But the teeth are so fine on there. This is just great for little precise cuts that you might need to make. Very specialty, sort of specialized tool, but it's one that I'm glad I've got on the wall, because there are times where you need that super fine, absolutely minimal set type of cut. And it's not too pricey. How much was it?
It was 20 bucks?
Yeah, I mean, this is not like a super high quality tool, but it's one you're going to want to keep around. It's handy to have.
Tim JB wants to know what you use to scrape glue off before sanding. You use your card scrapers, right?
Well, first of all, I try to get the glue off with a putty knife while it's still gooey, right? So I wait 30 minutes, 40, depends on your conditions. You want to scrape it off at the point where it's fully skinned over, not completely cured, and this way you can get under it, scrape it off, and it pretty much all comes off without kind of bursting and spreading around. That's the time to get it off. If you don't, at that point, you have a decision to make, because you can scrape it off with something hard like a card scraper. I've got a paint scraper, you know, the kind that comes with replaceable tips. One's like a teardrop shape, the other's a triangle. You could use that for really aggressive scraping. But once the glue is completely dried, glue binds to wood fibers, right? So if you aggressively try to scrape that stuff off of there, there's a real good chance you're gonna have nice little dips in there. As the glue droplets come off, they're gonna take wood with it. And you're gonna have all these little grooves and nasty little, it's just gonna be a bad scene. So usually if the glue has completely dried at that point, sanding. I'll just take a random orbit sander, very carefully come down on those spots, try not to dig into the surface to the left and right of it, but I will basically grind them down, because that's the only safe way to get the glue off without creating tear out on the surface.
I love this name. Pooterball wants to know.
This is my nickname in college, by the way. Old Pooterball Spags.
I put a 6-inch riser block on my Powermatic 14-inch bandsaw. Now, every time I move the top guide up and down, I have to retune everything. I assume this isn't normal.
Guide blocks, or riser blocks, honestly, unless you truly need that extra capacity, my opinion is that risers are not worth the effort. They generally will cause this kind of thing to happen. It's another variable you're putting in the mix. So I have heard of that happening before. I don't particularly have that problem. I also don't actually keep my 14-inch bandsaw like tuned to, it's not my resawing machine. That's why I have two bandsaws. I keep the PM 1500 tuned for resawing. That one I'm very careful about. The 14-inch is a little bit more for just curve cutting. So if my bearings are slightly off or something moves, I'm not as worried about it. That doesn't sound like the situation you're in, though. If you are using that 14-inch as your primary, you're going to want to make sure it works really well. So yeah, something sounds like it's definitely off. When you put that riser block in there, you actually have to use a different bar for the guard, and you have a larger span of space that thing now has to be locked in. And the ones that come on 14-inch saws are not really the most precise mechanisms out there, right? So as you're raising it up and down, if something is even slightly off, those bearings can move depending on what setting you're in. So yeah, absolutely, that's something that can happen. How you fix it, or if it's worth getting a replacement, that I don't know. But I would encourage you. I put the riser in there because I thought I needed it. And then I realized I didn't need it. And I kind of wish it wasn't there because it's just another thing to worry about. So if you don't absolutely need the riser block, think about what you're cutting. Do you truly need that additional capacity? If not, take it out and sell it. If you do, then maybe call Powermatic and see if maybe they can send you a new guide bar. Maybe something is off there so that the top position is not exactly the same as the bottom position.
Tim JB wants to know, Tim is who sent us that amazing chain.
Oh, dude, yes.
Since you are in your garage do you also have a water heater in the same space? If so, besides venting the room, do you have any other safety tips for finishing in the same space as a garage?
Okay.
We used to in Arizona, not here. Our hot water heater is in the basement. Mm-hmm. So,
first of all, Tim gets the free project, just because it reminds me of his chainmail thing that he made, his rings. So you get the free guild project. That winner is already decided. Just contact Nicole.
That's easy.
And let her know what project you want. But to answer your question, whenever you have a water heater, you have a situation with an open flame, and that's super dangerous for any finish that we put in the air of the shop, something you absolutely want to be concerned with. I would not finish in my shop if that were the case. If I'm just doing a hand-applied oil finish and we just have like a general off-gassing, as long as I have a window open and the garage door open, and better to even have some air movement with a fan, I would kind of be comfortable with that. With the water heater, I would also make sure that everything after the finishing is done, give it time to air out and make sure there's fresh air coming in at all times. But if you're doing anything that involves spraying, lacquers, really volatile finishes, it's really best to do that stuff outside. Get it out of your shop. It's just not worth the risk. I would be terrified to see someone spraying lacquer around an open flame. It's just bad news. But I do feel a little bit more comfortable with a small project being finished with like an oil-based wipe-on poly, as long as there's clean air coming in with ventilation. But it's an open flame, man. There isn't a whole lot you could do around an open flame and feel good about it. Got to be careful.
Yeah. Jim Rutherford just did a super chat and just said, first time watching live, really enjoyed this show. Keep it on. Thank you, Jim.
Kevin Windsor says the Guild Facebook group is problem-free, no crap.
Well,
I wouldn't say it's problem-free.
Right. It just seems that way.
Yeah, we have to do a little work to keep it problem-free. Nicole and I, thankfully it's not that much. Nicole and I are the only mods in that group because it's not that frequent of an occurrence, but we do actually have to actively make an effort sometimes to keep things that way. But I think people get in there, they get in there, they understand it, and they say, yeah, I love this, and I'd like to keep it this way.
I work really hard to create topics. So like there's a feature where, I mean, that group has been around since 2013, I think is when I started it. And so we have such a collection of just knowledge there. And Facebook, fine, I'll give them a compliment. They really are doing good stuff with, managing. Report? Should I report or remove?
Sure, report. Pornography.
There you go. Nice. So, Dwight, I hear you when you say, I hate Facebook. I would love to join your group. I guess I should get over that. That's not for me to decide if you should get over it.
Well, I'll tell you what to do, Dwight. I agree with your Facebook dislike. Create an account. Put some goofy name in it.
Yeah, make up a fake email.
Yeah, no one has to know about this. And all you use that for is to get into that guild group. I guarantee you will not regret that. Yeah. What you're going to regret is if you go in and you follow your uncle and your cousin and people who are sharing political memes. That's the stuff that makes Facebook suck. If you go in and just make an account, just so you consider the account just like a chat tool that gets you access to a great, helpful woodworking group. If all you do is that, you are not going to regret it. It's a good group. Here's the thing. If we had the power, I mean, we talk about this almost every day. If we had the ability to take that Facebook group, put it in some other place that we have complete control over, we would do it in a heartbeat. But right now there is no solution for that.
I've researched it. It just doesn't exist right now.
And I know there are tools and things like that, but most of those are things that would put us in the pocket of someone else. So instead of Facebook, now we're beholden to company X who makes this app.
Yeah.
We don't want to do that. So right now we're just holding tight and using this Facebook group. It's successful because a lot of people are already on Facebook and it's part of their daily click flow and toilet bowl reading. But honestly, if we could get out of Facebook and take that guild magic and put it somewhere else, we would. But a forum on the guild site, that's not it. You know, that's in 2019.
We lose mentorships.
Yeah.
We lose. It's just like a whole.
So we're
thing.
thinking about that, and we're very sensitive to it. But right now, it's the best we can do, and I guarantee you will not be disappointed in that group.
Pooterball just did a super chat and said, "Thank you. My last name is Pooter. Is it Pooterball?
Pooterball.
Pooterball.
Probably.
Pooterball is easier. I love.
Unless maybe that's how he pronounces it, is
I love
Pooterball.
It. So thank you, Pooterball.
Hey, well, I was thinking after the show, you want to go outside and play a quick game of Pooterball?
Yeah.
It's like baseball, but we have to use our butts to hit the ball.
Pooter.
So you have to use your pooter.
Oh my gosh. I have another question here from Milos, about Japanese chisels.
Oh, yes.
You know, that's a good topic for you. I've bought a couple used on eBay, and when I sharpen them, they feel sticky, the softer part of it, and it makes it harder to sharpen, unlike Western ones. Are yours ever soft?
Well, one of the things with Japanese tools is it's a layer of steel and different hardness. So I believe the way it's working is you've got the harder steel at the tip, but the core is a little bit softer. So this is one of the reasons why you can't do like a hollow bevel sharpening on there. You want to do like a standard flat bevel sharpening. I've never had that happen though, what you're talking about, that it gets sticky because of the softer steel in the middle. I mean, is it so sticky that it's prohibitive, that it's, you know, preventing you from actually getting the edge sharp? If it is, I'm wondering, are you using a guide? Because a lot of times if you're using a guide for sharpening, you could fight through that. It's not that hard to just kind of do a pull stroke. And if you get some of that suction and sharpening, I mean, the sharper you get it, a lot of times you will get that sort of, the water layer sucks it down and makes it difficult to kind of pop it up, right? Cohesion, I believe it is. So that's kind of normal, but I've never had it be so problematic that it prevents me from actually sharpening. So maybe I'm not the best person to answer that question.
Bill wants to know about, speaking of sharpening, the sharpening stone set that you recommended on the Amazon store, is that still?
Same recommendation. I still use the same stuff. I've got some diamond plates that I use for the lowest grits, and I still use those diamond plates to help me flatten my water stones. The water stones are sharpened water stones. The only thing that may have changed is they've changed. So I know there's been label changes and ownership changes, but if you look up sharpened stones, you will typically find the brightly colored ceramic stones of whatever brand. There's a Japanese name on them now. It's very confusing to me on what's what. But yes, if you can find the sharpened stones or whatever they're calling them now, ceramic stones, that is still the same set that I would recommend.
I think I had it underneath Mark Recommends, and it was a bunch of colored stones, right?
You can't miss them.
These right here.
Yep, and they look the same. I think they've just had changes in ownership.
Sharpen.
But they do have the name Sharpen on them.
Yeah, those are the ones. Okay, well I'll bump them up to the.
And there's
Friday
a four-piece set on Amazon for $2.19 if you want all four of those.
So I'll just throw that into Friday Live just so. There's actually more. There's like a 2 set for $97.
Yeah, and I don't think you need all four of those. The 12,000 grit, probably don't really need that. But I do like the idea of the 1,000, 5,000, and 8,000.
And that's at $175 right now.
Okay.
There
you go.
Rich Klein just did a super chat and said +1 on the Facebook fake account idea.
We're getting a bunch of spam.
What is going on?
It's just probably a bot.
Yeah. Boom. Boom.
You missed another one.
Boom.
Well, we're gonna be closing off the show.
You gotta lift up your hand anyway.
I gotta lift up my hand anyway.
Put it on my shoulder. Let's see. Oh yeah, he said, do I need the coarser 320 grit stone?
When I need the coarse stuff, I don't buy the Sharpen for that. I use the diamond stones for the really coarse work. So if I have to reshape a bevel, change a bevel angle, something like that, I'm probably going to use the DMT line, and they've got a couple different varieties. They've got the Duo Sharp with 2 different sides. They've got like an extra coarse that's just that big fat metal plate. That's pretty awesome. Rather than using like low grit sandpaper, but that is an alternative. If you don't want to buy a really super coarse grit, you can actually just get a piece of sandpaper, put it on a flat surface, and use that for that initial work, and then jump up to your stones to hone it. Of course, you have grinders.
Hoagies and grinders.
Yes, Mark, do you have a question? Yes? John, I've got a question for you. Why are you so good looking? Above the heart, Mark, above the heart. That's what I'm trying to do, guys.
Yeah.
Trying to do it.
Yeah.
Here, is that better? You guys feel better now? I did sleep with it
How did
elevated.
you sleep? Did you sleep okay?
Yeah, I kind of slept on my back,
Yeah.
arm out like this on a pillow,
Yeah.
head turned this way, right arm under the pillow,
Yeah.
like this. That's how I slept the whole night.
All right.
Anything else?
I think we got everything. Let me just double check my, sometimes I miss super chats and I don't like it when I do that. So if you do have questions about the guild and you're watching this at another time, feel free to use that new chat feature on the website. I'm pretty responsive.
You're asking for it, girl.
Oh, Bill just did a super chat. Thank you, Bill. Appreciate that.
Yep.
And I hope your wife likes the sewing machine because I love it.
What's this one? Did we say that one?
Pooterball?
No, up. Right there.
Yeah, we just did that one.
Rich Klein.
Yeah, we just said Rich.
He said plus one on a fake
Yeah.
Facebook account.
Yeah, we just did that.
I know, but did he say that?
Yes.
Did we give him credit for that?
Yes, he did.
I don't remember that.
You need to go lay
I
down.
must have been drinking coffee.
You need to go lay down.
Okay. Anything else we got before we head out?
Chris just wants to know, do you scrape the soft glue off the bottom side of panels? What does that even mean?
No. I mean, like, if I'm doing a panel and it's fairly small and I think of it, I might do that because I know it's going to save me a little bit of effort later. But when I was talking before about popping that dried glue up and what it does to tear out, that's the bottom of a tabletop. I don't usually worry about it. I'm just going to hit it with my sander and grind through it. Especially if it's a big glue up, getting that thing lifted up so I can get under it and scrape the glue, I'm probably not going to do that. If it's a smaller panel and I think of it, yeah, I'll do it. I'll get a quick scrape and just save myself the effort later. It's a good idea to do it, but to be honest, I don't usually do it.
All right, so let's wrap this up. Thank you so much for hanging out with us, and so sorry about the late start. Yeah. I am
Obvious reasons.
I like the fact that I can schedule our lives now, and you can go to it early and get that reminder.
Okay. Yeah, no, it worked fine.
Unfortunately, the reminder went out at 9 o'clock.
Right. Well, normally that'll work just fine.
Yeah.
I was concerned that it wouldn't also broadcast on our live page, on
but it
YouTube,
does.
and it seemed like it did.
Yep.
So as long as you don't mind making that event
I don't mind
every
it at all.
time, we'll keep doing this.
Yay.
All right, guys. Well, I think I'm going to be doing a lot of computer work for a little while. Probably not a whole lot of shop stuff. Although, with Jason here,
Yeah, he's your hands.
I could be like, do this, do that, push that through there. Now push it through there again because you just messed it up.
It's good experience for him.
No, it's great. And we actually have a series of, I won't call them easy projects, but they're definitely on the simpler side that we're going to be releasing. I think we mentioned this last week on the free site. So those are projects that I think are great skill builders for Jay. So he's going to plow forward with them.
John made me laugh. He said, take it easy, high five.
Man, a high five would hurt so bad right now.
God. Thank you again. It's always fun hanging out with you.
Okay, well, thanks everybody. Have a wonderful weekend.
Bye.
And we'll see you later. I've been holding in a fart for like 20 minutes now.
Nope, there it goes. It was a baby one. A Pooterball.
I dropped my Pooterball. Let me go get it.